Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here, back with another guide for Castlevania Rondo of Blood in the Castlevania Requiem collection on PS4. This time it is for the trophy, the full Belmonty. This trophy is somewhat of a meta trophy of sorts, meaning you need to get other trophies before you're eligible for this one. The full Belmonty is actually pretty easy, it's just a little confusing at times. You just have to get 100% completion, and this is tracked right on the title screen of Rondo of Blood. But the reason it's a little bit harder than you think is because there are a lot of branching paths in most of these levels. For example, in level 4 Dash, which is the hidden or alternate level 4, there's a way to fight the original level 4 boss instead of the level 4 Dash boss. And if you do this, you don't get the full completion percentage. So what I'm going to be doing in this guide is I'm going to show you how to enter every level, defeat all the bosses, rescue all 4 maidens, and I'm also going to give you some tips that should help you along the way. So without further ado, let's get started. Level 1 is pretty straightforward. When you reach this path, just go through the door on the right and you'll proceed to the Wyvern boss. The Wyvern boss is pretty easy, especially if you have the axe and a lot of hearts. He's really not threatening at all. You could even item crash if you'd like to, but you just gotta keep chucking axes or whipping him while he's in the air, and eventually he will fall. One thing I do want to mention, this is probably the best level to get the Vampire Killer trophy in. Getting this trophy requires you to take no damage throughout the level, as well as to take no damage on the boss. And once you collect the red orb, there will be a no damage bonus when it's tallying your score. Defeating the Wyvern boss in level 1 will make you proceed to level 2, which is where you're going to rescue the young Maria Renard for the trophy, the Young Huntress. Rescuing Maria is actually pretty easy. All you have to do is make your way through the level until the Catoblepas crashes through the castle. Once this happens, the beast will chase you through the hallway. You want to whip the second lantern you see right here, and a key will drop out of it. This will take the place of whatever sub-weapon you have, and just keep proceeding as normal. Don't fall into any of these pits. If you do, that leads to level 3 Dash actually, or the alternate route of level 2, but we'll get to that later. Proceed as normal through the door, but be wary, the Catoblepas will keep chasing you, so make sure you just jump onto these platforms over here. Once you do that, you want to keep making your way forward. There's going to be an eyeball enemy over here, just ignore it. It only comes to life if you whip it while it's in the cage. Also, if you're low on health here, there is a roast in this wall. Once you go down the staircase, make your way through the underground water cavern. This is a bit treacherous because of all these mermen, or the fishmen, whatever they're called, but eventually you'll make it to the gate, and use your key by pressing up and square, just like you would any other sub-weapon, and kill the priestess in here, and you'll be able to rescue Maria and get that trophy. You now have a second playable character. Maria is really strong. She actually can't take too many hits, but she absolutely destroys everything in her path. She's really good. Once you have Maria rescued, it's time to proceed to the level 2 boss, the Werewolf. The Werewolf is one of the more challenging bosses in Rondo of Blood simply because his pattern is a little bit unpredictable, although I'm sure if you watch a speedrun, they probably have it down to a science, but for most players it's going to seem a little bit random. He climbs on the walls, he jumps down, he can roll up into a ball and bounce off the screen like you see here, and he's just very frustrating to play against. I find that Holy Water is pretty effective here only because there are times when he's just out of range, and jumping and throwing a Holy Water will do the trick to get a few hits in. So once you defeat him, you'll proceed to level 3. While level 3 does have a few exits, one of them leading to the boss from level 3 Dash, I only want to show you guys how to proceed through the levels like normal, and then at the back half of this guide, you will see how to get into the alternate levels. So this Minotaur boss is the boss of regular level 3. He has a few different attacks. He has a breath that can turn you into stone. He has a leaping axe ability. He also has a regular stab. He can grab the ground and pull up tiles and throw them at you. But probably his most devastating attack is a big charge. It's just coming up in a second, but there's another move that you could do when he does a leap just like that, and I recommend using an item crash there only because it's a little hard to avoid. But for his dash, you can backflip over it. You just gotta time it, face the other way, and just backflip over it. And that's it. So don't worry about dying to these like death animations. They just bring you down to 1 health. If you're trying to go for a no damage run, of course, avoid it, but you don't have to worry, it can't kill you. Level 4 is a dungeon, and it is probably one of the hardest levels in the game. Everything here is just trying to kill you, even the floor. There's a lot of spike traps, a lot of really tough enemies, but there's also a lot of branching paths, and this is the one that I prefer to take. So if you defeat that pygmy man, he's standing on a switch, and if you hit it, it drops some stairs. Now, a lot of people don't like this path because there's a lot of spike traps, but I just prefer it for some reason. It's all about timing, and it's all about really mastering Richter's whip, and I'll show you an example here. So these swinging balls, they move at different speeds and different patterns. What you want to do is you want to crouch at the right time and also try to deal with the enemies. They're quite annoying. But there's also an Axe Knight here. And these guys are especially challenging, but there's a pretty effective way to defeat them, and that is using Richter's extended whip. So to use it, you want to throw the whip and then tap forward twice, and it will boost the range of it. And it makes these guys really easy because you can stand at such a great distance. And there's a roast in the corner of this wall here in case you're running low on health. It's always useful to pick those up. So in this next section of this alternate route, you can pick up the cross. And the cross is really, really effective for the remainder of this level, so try to keep it. This section is especially challenging because you have to land on very narrow pillars above a spiked floor. Touching the floor will not kill you instantly, but you'll take some pretty heavy damage. Dealing with these floating eyeballs is pretty tough. Try to throw across once they take off from the ground, and then try to whip them, once they're in the air. And there you go, yeah. So you take a fair amount of damage from these. This switch will spawn infinitely spawning pygmy men. So if you can avoid it, please do. It's hard to avoid because you gotta jump from the narrow pillar over here, and you only have a few pixels to land on without hitting the switch. But if you can avoid hitting it, definitely look into that. The next area I want to draw attention to in level 4 is this one here with the red axe armor enemies. These guys are different than the blue ones because they are a lot more aggressive and they charge at you. Knowing how to backflip on command and do it, without messing it up is really, really helpful because they're just relentless. So mastering the backflip is really helpful in these scenarios. Right after the axe armor is these flails that are attached to the pillars. Basically, what you want to do is you want to hit them with your whip. You can also use a sub-weapon, and you can change their trajectory. You can get them to collapse or expand. So doing so will get you to be able to pass underneath it, just like that. So hitting it at the base will actually change the direction it's moving. And then you'll be faced with a big bone pillar, but just throw some axes and whip it, and it'll fall. What I want to show you next is immediately following the bone pillar, there is a roast in this little 2-tile platform here. To our left, right here, there's a roast in there so you can restore some health. And then this next section here has a wall at the end of it, so you want to jump on the platform, and then if you want to proceed through the rest of level 4, jump up here and walk up the stairs. However, if you want to get the secret exit, break this wall and set off the bomb. However, doing this will make it so you cannot complete the rest of the level. So if you are at 96%, you can't figure out why, chances are it's because you didn't actually finish this level. You went through the alternate path. That's actually what hung me up on this playthrough. It was finding that I didn't actually complete this level. So be very careful with that bomb. If you proceed up the stairs, you will fight the boss of this level, which is Dullahan. He's pretty easy, which is nice considering how difficult the level was, especially for me. He has 4 or 5 attacks, the most devastating of which is a ground pound, which causes the ceiling to crumble. But he can let loose his head, which if it hits you will cast slow on you. He has a leaping attack like that. He also has a forward stab or a lunge. And that's pretty much it. He's pretty easy, he's not too hard. If you break the candle up top, it will drop a Bible. So if you prefer that as your sub-weapon, that's available to you, but you really just need an axe to get that. But yeah, he's not too hard. So once you deplete his life, he will fall, and then it is on to level 5. Level 5 is not too difficult, but the end boss, Death, is probably the hardest boss in the entire game, next to Shaft, I think. But there is a secret in this level that makes it a little bit easier for you to traverse one of the harder sections, and it also contains a 1-up that's really easy to get. So once you're at this section, just break the 2 blocks next to the pipe or the railing or whatever that's supposed to be, and then drop down and keep whipping the engine, I think it is, of this boat, and eventually it will break, sort of like Street Fighter, and out pops a 1-up. So if you find yourself struggling and you're repeating this level a bunch of times, I know I was, just make sure to get that 1-up every time you're able to. Once you reach the end of the level and you are headed up the mast to fight Death, there is a roast in the corner of this wall towards the bottom, and then the rest of the lamps contain either hearts or holy water. I prefer the cross for this fight only because it makes fighting the sickles that spawn basically infinitely throughout phase 1 and 2 easier to manage because the cross covers a big ground, whereas holy water is really only effective against them if you're using an item crash. Like I said, Death is probably one of the hardest bosses in this game. His first phase will probably have you taking the most damage only because of all the sickles that are spawning, but if you use the cross effectively, you can wipe a lot of them off the screen. One quick tip here is when he lands in phase 2, just crouch right in this position and then whip his feet, and you can get a quick hit off of him. What I'd like to do here is I like to use an item crash with the crosses only because they fill the screen. They take care of most of the sickles that are spawning, and if you just keep death on the screen, he will take a ton of damage. So item crash with the cross makes phase 2 really, really simple. Stage 6 is just a gauntlet of bosses that get summoned by Shaft. There's no actual platforming associated with this level, it's just a gauntlet. The first boss in this gauntlet is a giant bat. The easiest strategy is to just stand in this top left corner. It's really difficult for him to hit you. You essentially just have to jump for the drill. The second boss is Medusa. She can turn you to stone with that blue energy beam. She's probably the easiest out of all of them. All of her attacks are super dodgeable. And yeah, so just keep hitting her, she'll eventually fall. These rings are the most annoying thing, I would say. The next boss is the Mummy Man. He is probably the most annoying only because of these moving platforms that you have to jump over, and then his little stitches that come out are quite frustrating as well. You can just get squished by a block. You'll take a decent amount of damage, but if you feel like you're not going to make it through the platforming, just take a hit. Once he's dead, he will drop a roast. The next boss is Frankenstein's monster. He has a grab attack that's pretty devastating. He also has this jumping attack that causes the ceiling to crumble, and it's kind of hard to avoid the bricks that fall down. He also has an attack where he shoots bolts of electricity out of his hands. The easiest way to dodge that is to just run towards the wall and try to jump onto a platform. It's really just kind of kill him before he can kill you, that sort of fight. The next is Shaft, and one thing I do want to say is that if you kill all the bosses and then make it up to Shaft, and as long as it's not a game over, and you go back into the room, you will only have to fight Shaft. You won't have to do the whole gauntlet again. Shaft has 3 different abilities, all involving his orbs. The first ability turns them into fire. The second ability has them shoot bolts of lightning, which you just kind of have to pay attention to and dodge. And then the third attack, he just turns them into energy that kind of homes in on you. And then eventually he just walks back and forth, and yeah, just keep whacking him. Use your item crash to get out of situations, and eventually he will die. Stage 7 is the final main stage of Castlevania Rondo of Blood, and it is the final platforming challenge before Dracula. So it starts off with this bridge gauntlet. Make sure to grab the axe out of the top right lantern, because you're going to have to kill a whole bunch of bats while navigating a crumbling bridge. Getting out of this gauntlet without taking a ton of damage is quite difficult. It's going to take a lot of practice. Try to get as many hearts as you can out of these lamps, because you're going to be using a lot of axes to kill bats that are just chasing you, and they spawn infinitely. There is no end to them until you reach the end of the gauntlet. So yeah, it's really just a battle of survival. Be sure to utilize your backflip wherever you can, and just try to play really, really solid. It's difficult, it's fun, and there is a cross at the end, or a crucifix, that allows you to clear the screen. So when you make it up to the first section of the clock tower, you want to hit this cogwheel in the top right corner 6 times in order to open the gate. And on the other side of this gate is a roast as well as a crow holding a key to the next maiden. So open up the eggs for the roast, a little bit morbid, and then just chuck some axes or hit the crow with your whip to pick up the key. And then you need to make it through the next section of the clock tower without, dying, in order to rescue Annette, which I believe is Richter's girlfriend or his wife or something. Try to kill these harpies. They dodge basically all of your attacks, so they're incredibly frustrating to deal with. If you're able to, just avoid them, even though they move very quickly. Once you make your way down, just walk to the left and open this door with your key on the left side. Just press up and square like you did before to rescue Maria, and yeah, you'll go in and rescue Annette. The boss of level 7 is Shaft's Ghost, and he's a lot easier than his previous form, but he does summon old bosses just in much quicker succession. So you'll have to be dealing with bats flying around the screen, an undead behemoth or a catoblepas, and every time you hit him, he bounces to the other side of the stage. To dodge the catoblepas, every time you see the bricks start crumbling, face the opposite way and get ready to do a backflip, and you will dodge it every single time. It is also possible for him to summon a Wyvern that will either breathe fire or fly across the screen, so just try to dodge that. But he falls pretty quickly. He's nowhere near as hard as his previous form. But once he's dead, it is time to face Dracula. Stage 8 is just the fight with Dracula, so there's no platforming involved. The sub-weapon that you want to use is the Holy Water, because the item crash just destroys him in phase 2. But to deal with phase 1, the easiest and safest strat is to wait for him to lift his arm, then jump and whip his head, which is his only vulnerable point. And then as you fall down, it will hit all 3 of the fireballs that are coming after you. This way they don't deal any damage, as I just failed to demonstrate there. But that's the general strategy. And he only has one other attack in phase 1, and it is very easy to dodge. He summons some black energy orbs, and what you want to do is you want to duck under the first one, and then jump over the second one. And I believe the next attack he's about to do is those orbs. Yep. Duck, and then jump, and that's it. So just rinse and repeat that until he is dead in phase 1, and then he transforms into a demon, and that is phase 2. Dracula in phase 2 is very similar to Dracula in phase 1 in the sense that he's still only vulnerable in the head. The caveat here is that he never disappears, so he's always on the screen. The Holy Water item crash is incredibly effective in this phase, so what you want to do is just keep hitting him until he leaps, and then walk underneath him, and just rinse and repeat. He will pause and shoot fireballs at you, and that is the perfect time to use an item crash, and he's about to do it right here. So go ahead and use the item crash, and then it allows you to kind of get to safety from his fireballs, and then a few more hits, and he will fall. And that is how you defeat Dracula. He's one of the easier versions of Dracula in Castlevania, nowhere near as hard as Castlevania 3, and there you go. So now he's dead, and it is time to do the alternate levels. The reason I waited to the end of this guide to show you the alternate levels is that you can only access level 5- after you defeat Dracula. So there's really no sense in doing them until you have finished the main game. There are alternate versions of levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 is only accessible after you defeat Dracula, and it has no extra boss, it's just a gauntlet. So in order to start accessing these alternate levels, let's go back to level 1 and choose a different path. When you reach this section in level 1, break the wall on the left to reveal a heart, and then jump up and break the next wall to reveal the path. I sort of messed up in my recording here, but yeah, just break the path and eventually it will reveal the next section. Towards the end of this particular screen, there will be a moving platform going back and forth, and it seems like you're at a dead end, but you're not. Just jump down to reveal the next area. The boss in this alternate route of level 1 is the Water Serpent that guards the bridge. He's pretty easy, he's only vulnerable in the head, and he only has a few attacks. So he has one where he coils around the bridge. This is pretty easy to avoid. The next is leap over the bridge, and then he has a third attack where he comes up and spits out water beams, and that's pretty much it. It's his 3 attacks. So once he is dead, he will come up and you'll see his skeleton, and then you get the orb, and then it's time to proceed to level 2-. Level 2- is pretty straightforward, but it does have 2 exits, one of which allows you to skip the boss, so we'll go through that one first. When you reach this section of the bridge with the gargoyles, you want to jump down the 3rd pit that you come across, and this will drop you onto the ferryman's boat. The ferryman will take you along the river, and you have to get through a gauntlet of mermen. This is either really difficult or really easy depending on the RNG you get, but I'd recommend just standing immediately next to the ferryman, and you will be able to hit most of them as they're in the air. Eventually this gauntlet will end, and you will immediately be brought to level 3-. If you wish to take the normal route through level 2-, kill those gargoyles you skipped before, and then make your way to this area where the sun is setting. As it's turning night, you want to jump into this pit, and you'll be brought to the secondary route through this level, which will lead to the area's boss, the Bone Golem. The Bone Golem boss really isn't that difficult, however he does have 3 phases. One of which he's on all 4s or all 6, I don't even know how many legs he has, and his only real attack is to breathe fire, and he also extends his arm. Every time you hit him, he covers his face, but eventually when you get him down about 30% past that first marker on his bar, he will transition into phase 2, which is his flying phase. In phase 2, he has 2 patterns. The first pattern of which is the one you're seeing now, where he can drop skulls on the floor. Also be aware that if you hit his tail, or if he hits you with his tail, you will get slowed, so try to avoid it at all costs. The cross is a very effective sub-weapon for this fight because it takes care of all the skulls he's dropping, and it allows you to pass under him safely. After you whittle his health down past the second marker, he will transition into his 3rd phase. This phase is actually a lot easier than it looks. This big pile of bones just sort of goes running around the room. If you have enough hearts to do an item crash, go ahead and do that. It'll deal a lot of damage to him. But basically what you want to do is you want to backflip onto his top and then whip him as you jump off. He will get faster and faster as it goes on, and once he's 1 hit from death, he will slow to a crawl. So you give him a nice mercy kill, and then the orb drops, and it is on to level 3-. Level 3- is the cemetery, and in this level we are going to rescue the next maiden named Tera, However, before we do that, I did want to show you this secret area up here by moving this gravestone. It reveals a secret cave with a full stock of sub-weapons, as well as, I believe, a 1-up on the right. It should be there. Yep, in that middle lantern is a 1-up, as well as a full stock of sub-weapons. If you took a lot of damage fighting the giant skull enemy in the previous section, break open this wall in the first little area here for a free roast. Now it is time to rescue Tera. So make your way over to the door. However, we are not going to go through the door. Instead, we are going to go under the door. This wall of rocks here that I'm facing now has to be broken in a very specific way. You have to break it from the top rock to the bottom rock. So that's why it won't open if you just keep slashing it while standing. You have to jump and slash the first rock. Once you go through this next area, this little wooden pile is actually a staircase. So head down, and Tera is praying at the altar in this cave. In order to finish stage 3- and fight the boss to proceed to stage 4-, you need to cut down the second chain ball you see in this section. It will break open the floor in the previous section, and then you can proceed to the boss named Dogether. Dogether is a pretty interesting boss. He has 3 attacks, each signified by a rune that shows up on the screen before he does it. The green one signifies an attack that he's going to shoot 3 beams. The red one signifies that he's going to shoot fire all over the place. And then the blue one signifies that he's going to shoot bricks all over the place. So just keep managing these attacks. Try to dodge as best as you can. The axe is very effective because he spends a lot of time in the air. Item crashes are effective as well. However, he does disappear sometimes, so be very careful when you use it, as you don't want to waste a ton of hearts. Once he falls, it is time to head to stage 4-. Stage 4- has 2 main objectives. The first is to rescue the maiden named Iris. The second is to exit this stage by facing the boss Carmilla, which is through a hidden exit. So in order to rescue Iris, what we need to do is make it to the second section and then whip this first frog statue and make it submerge into the ground. At the end of this section, there is a second frog statue for you to hit, and once it goes underground, it will turn this log bridge into a ramp, and then there is a staircase in the ground here. Just watch out for the falling skeletons, they like to join you. So walk down this staircase and into the underground water cavern. Now, if you are low on health, which is very possible because those skeletons are very annoying, there is a roast in this wall here, and to make this section a little bit easier, there's a cross in the lantern. So once you get that, proceed through the water cavern, and you have to do some pretty tricky platforming. This lantern here has a 1-up in it, so try to strike it as you jump across the chasm, because it will fall through the platform if you don't grab it in midair or as it's falling onto the platform. These 2 platforms here look like ice, and the one that's underwater kind of shimmers. Be very careful because it's very easy to kind of either overshoot it or get hit off by a merman, just like I did there. And dodge the fireballs. It's kind of harrowing, but once you make it to the other side, open the door and you will rescue Iris. If you are low on hearts, or if you want to change out your sub-weapon, head back into this room after the cutscene plays, and there will be a bunch of lamps in here, and they have a full range of sub-weapons as well as a couple hearts. After rescuing Iris, I recommend restarting the level, because in order to fight level 4-'s boss and proceed to level 5-, you need to use a secret exit. So make your way to the second section again, but this time hop onto a raft and fall down to the next screen, and you will be transported onto some rapids while riding a raft. This crow here is holding a chest, so you can hit it a bunch of times to make it drop different sub-weapons as well as some hearts, and then as you proceed down the rapids, you will be threatened by a bunch of skeletons on rafts themselves that have spears. If you're lucky, it doesn't always happen, but the crow will show back up carrying another chest, so if you're running low on hearts or you want to change your sub-weapon, you're free to do so. You can jump while on the raft and you will not get kicked off. You do not carry momentum into the air. Eventually, another crow will show up holding a sign, and that is your cue to jump. Otherwise, you will fall to your death. That sign reads deadly. However, the game didn't actually translate the sign itself, so it's a little hard to see. In the next section, there will be the ferryman again, back from level 2-. However, he has a little bit more to offer this time, and this is how you get the trophy Come No More. The first time you jump back onto his boat, he will give you a roast. The second time, he will give you the key that allows you to fight the boss. The third time, he will say Come No More, you'll get the trophy, and then he offers you an invincibility potion. This potion is very effective because the bats in this area can very easily knock you off of these moving platforms. However, I got kind of lucky here with my RNG, and the game registered my position as in the air for some reason on that third wave. So once you reach the gate, press up and square to use your key, and this will allow you to fight this level's boss, Carmilla. Once you're in this hallway, turn back to get some holy water. I think it's a little bit more effective against Carmilla, only because the other sub-weapons bounce off of her. Carmilla is a 2-phase boss fight. During the first phase, the woman on the ground, Laura, will try to kiss you and you'll lose a bunch of hearts. At the same time, you need to basically stay on the upper platforms and deal damage to Carmilla herself, or rather the skull she's riding on. Once enough damage is dealt to Carmilla, she will die, and then Laura becomes the active boss. She'll try to run away from you, but once you hit her once, she will reveal herself to be a succubus, and then you need to deal the last few hits to her. She bounces all over the place, she does some mixed martial arts, and she can be kind of annoying, but once she's dead, she drops a bunch of hearts, so you can increase your score, maybe for a chance at a 1-up if you're close. But yeah, that's it. So if you have defeated Dracula, you will now proceed to stage 5-. However, if you have not defeated Dracula at this point, you will be sent to the regular stage 5. So having defeated Dracula and Carmilla and Laura, you are now at stage 5-. And I'm going to try to play through this whole stage while doing commentary, only because a lot of people consider this to be the hardest stage in the game. And the reason for that is because it is just one long gauntlet. There is no boss in this level. However, the last couple sections are incredibly challenging. I like taking a path that some people think is more challenging, and that is a platforming path, but I'll show you what I mean in a bit. So for this section, you just want to duck under these platforms here, and yeah, that's really it. That's the whole thing. So this section is pretty difficult. These bridges that you see are activated when you jump, so you could walk right across them. It doesn't matter. I prefer to take this lower route, like I said. These Medusa heads can be kind of annoying, but if you get into a good pattern, they're really easy. So the trick in this section here is to, 1, not jump while on these bridges, and 2, to take the knife instead of the axe. And every time you jump onto a platform, a bat will show up. So what you want to do is jump to a platform, wait for the bat, jump to the next platform, wait for the bat, and then jump for the next platform. The knives will make really quick work of the bats, and it becomes really easy. So on the bridge here, you'll have these floating eye enemies. I don't think you can just run past them, but the reason that you want to try to get them out of your way is because there's an axe knight at the end, and using your extended whip by whipping and pressing forward twice is really, really effective. So this last section here is the hardest part of the gauntlet. You have crows that are really annoying, but there is an axe here for you that makes it quite easy to deal with. And then there is a roast in the top left section of this right here. After I kill the axe knight, I'll get it. Yep, there you go. There's the roast. So you get up to about half health, and then you can just proceed through the rest of the gauntlet like normal. Yeah, that's really it. It's tough, it's challenging, but it's fun. You have some more axe knights over here. The next axe knight is a red axe knight, and or red axe armor, I think they're called. Oh, sorry, it's actually a spear enemy, but using the whip makes short work of him. Here is the red axe armor. Using backflips is really effective, and eventually he will fall, and then it's just 2 more spear enemies, and it's over. You actually don't even need to kill these guys. There's nothing special here, so I'm not really sure why they put them down there. I guess it's to be annoying because they do poke through the floor. But this door here is the end, and once you go through it, you go back to level 6, which is Shaft's level. So if you followed this guide and hit all the levels, fought all the bosses, and rescued all the maidens, you should be at 100%. If you're not, I recommend doing what I did and sort of retracing your steps and trying to figure out if you maybe didn't visit all the bosses. And for me, having completed level 5-, defeated Dracula, and rescuing all 4 maidens, I realized that I didn't actually finish level 4. So I went back and proceeded to do so. Now what's interesting is that I had fought Dullahan before. However, I did it from level 4- by proceeding through another route. So even if you proceed through all the levels, you still have to fight all the bosses. So if you are not proceeding through the dash levels and fighting the dash bosses, you will not get the trophy. And as you can see here, I was in regular level 4, and I got the full Belmonty trophy. So it's a little weird. Make sure you visit all levels, fight all bosses, and rescue all 4 maidens, and then you should get the trophy. If you find that you've done that, and you still have not gotten the trophy, or if you're stuck at 96% or 92% or something, please leave a comment and I'll try to help you out. If you like this video and you'd like to see more like it, please subscribe to the channel. Now that I'm done with all the Rondo of Blood trophy guides, I will be moving on to Symphony of the Night and rounding out all the Castlevania Requiem trophy guides. Alright guys, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.